Pride Live on Facebook. I'm delighted to be your moderator for today. I'm Suki Sandhu, the founder and CEO for Outstanding Empower and Heroes. And today we're going to be talking about LGBT and BAME. Now, many of you might be thinking, what on earth does BAME mean? I know some of our panel did tonight. So I'm going to first of all explain that. So BAME stands for British, Asian and Minority Ethnic, which other kind of terms for it could be ethnic minorities or people of colour. So we're effectively talking about race and LGBT today, which is a really important...
Can I just quickly butt in, Suki?
Yeah.
It's Black and Asian Minority Ethnic.
Sorry, Black and Asian Minority Ethnic, been corrected. Thanks, Suki. But no, we're going to talk about race and LGBT because it's a really important topic and very sensitive for our community. And we are live, we're interactive, so please do send in your comments, your questions, and we'll try and share them with the panel this evening. So please, I'm really delighted to have an amazing panel here tonight, as you can see. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen so much colour in a panel before, which I think is brilliant. I'm going to introduce each of them one by one. We have Olivette here, who is a co-founder of Stonewall, a counsellor for Positive East, and an incredible actress. So welcome, Olivette.
Thank you.
We have Kimberly, who is an award-winning singer and performer, originally from the United States, and she now lives here in the UK. We have Phil Apoku Jimmer, also known as Lady Phil. I feel like I should curtsy. And is a co-founder, trustee and executive director of UK Black Pride. And she's also a trustee for Stonewall. And she very famously last year turned down a Queen's Honour. I thought that was quite interesting. And then last but not least, we have the amazing Asifa Lahore, who is the alter ego of Asif Qureshi, and is Britain's first gay Muslim drag queen. And she's certainly pushing the boundaries in terms of what it means to be gay and Muslim, and looking very beautiful tonight. Thanks for joining us. So we don't have very much time today, so I'm going to launch straight into the questions, and we're going to start by talking about what you all see as the main challenges that the BAME and the LGBT community face at the moment. So I don't know if you want to start with that, Olivette.
Okay, well, I think one of the challenges, I would say, is something to do with shame and self-worth. And I think that I say that because, from my experience, a lot of people have come from maybe religious backgrounds and have been ostracised by their families, or if not ostracised, they've been put down in subtle ways. And I think that even though people are out and they're going out and about their daily lives, I think there's still that something deep inside that, you know, doesn't allow them to live lives to the full. So I think that's one thing. And I think another thing is about connectedness. And I think it's really hard sometimes for black people to connect with each other. Or I should say, BAME. When I say black, I'm talking about political term black.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
you know, I think that's another area. Maybe not enough places to have discussions and to meet up and gain that strength to move on, really.
Okay. Kimberly?
I think many people of colour, one of the challenges I find is that on the LGBT community on the scene here in London, I feel that a lot of people are not actually given the chance. They're judged by their skin color. And I think if you really think about it, if you look around like a lot of the gay venues, there's always like a white male who's the manager. I don't know any black managers. I think that also with the black community, with the Jamaican and the African black community, I think they need to get to know each other a bit more, which I think that is happening, because when I first came to this country, there was a little bit of tension between those two races, but I feel that they are really starting to come together now, and I do feel that the Caucasian community need to get to know the black community as well. They think, oh well, black people, they're good at basketball, they're good at dancing, but you know, have you actually really got to know a black person?
I think it's an interesting point you raise about, obviously there's so many different ethnicities now, so even BAME doesn't necessarily cover them all, and black, like you say, you've got African, Caribbean, it's so varied, it's complicated for everyone, not just for white people. Have you got anything to add, Phil?
Yeah, I think that it's really hard to distill, you know, what are the issues. There are so many, you know, so many challenges. We can go right back to looking at, you know, systemic racism, people trying to find a place to say, do I tackle racism or homophobia, biphobia, transphobia? Do I tackle the issue of sexism or misogyny? So it's really hard to just say what are those issues. We're talking about safe spaces for people of colour. We're talking about the ability to be able to amplify one's voices. Some of the challenges can be what we see in the gay media, which may not be as reflective as who we are on this panel. Some of the other issues, you know, I think has a lot to do with, and you know, I'm very political, a lot to do with austerity. So when you talk about withdrawing services, cutting services around mental health, around sexual health, that will be an issue and a challenge for LGBTQI people. But when we talk about mental health, we already know that black BME, BAME people are disproportionately hit harder in regards to mental health. So there's a combination of so many different things. Racism, which needs to be challenged, health services, and also just safe spaces, which allows us to amplify our voices, and also the media having a responsibility to look at whether their media is intersectional or not.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Anything else you'd like to add to Sifa on the challenges?
Well, I just want to say, like, first of all, like, amazing points raised by my fellow panelists. I just want to say that, you know, as I was thinking about this coming here, I hate the term BAME. You've got white, and then you've lumped everybody else into sort of BAME. And it's just like, what is BAME?
I think it sounds like an STD.
Exactly, it's ridiculous, right?
I hate it too.
Look, we have complex needs and complex identities. You know, if I take myself, for example, LGBT plus Muslim, I identify as that. You know, I'm straddling so many different identities here: British, Asian, Pakistani, gay, gender fluid, drag queen, trans, whatever you want to put in there. To sort of put that all into one sort of, you know, BAME sort of category, I think is the issue in itself. Secondly, you know, so I really, really, really agree with what Kimberly just said about the opportunities. Our communities are at a point where we want to raise our voices, we want to get our points across, and yet we don't get the opportunities to do that. We really have to, like, fight, really raise our voices, and only the confident ones, or only the ones that really shout out loud, get the opportunities to actually have our voices raised.
Very
But
true.
can I say that's why I say the whole business about feeling strong in yourself and not feeling shame, because I don't think we should rely on people and wait for people to say, okay, look, here you go, take that space. We need to create the spaces for ourselves and take the space.
It's very much about believing in yourself and not letting anyone tell you that you can't achieve your goals. Never let anyone stop you. It's so important, and that's the message I really want to get out to the people of color, the BAME community, or whatever.
I mean, I'm hearing a lot here about visibility and opportunity. So actually, if I jump to a question around excluding yourselves, like, who are the BAME and LGBT role models that you look up to currently?
Well, definitely Phil. Definitely, I heard so much for standing up and going for what she believed in, you know, turning down the Queen. I think that is just amazing. Even though she got stick for it, I just think that's amazing. So well done.
Did you want to quickly share why you did that?
Okay.
I know this could be a long story.
Okay, how to simplify this. Okay, so I think anything that attaches its name to the word empire has a very toxic legacy. You know, we've only got to look at colonialism and some of those sodomy laws that still are retained in countries which are in the Commonwealth. And I believe, you know, as somebody who is a co-founder of UK Black Pride, that does a lot of work around LGBT, works with asylum seekers, migrants, I cannot, categorically could not accept anything that elevates itself over the people I set out to serve. Whilst we still have sodomy laws in countries and we have our people being tortured, persecuted, criminalised, and we have still not addressed that, but yet still I would get an award. I just think that UK Black Pride was founded on a struggle of black people who face particular levels of discrimination, and until anything like the Empire changes its title and addresses the issue of, you know, enslavement, slavery, colonialism, and what has happened today, I couldn't accept it. But I don't take anything away from anyone who has accepted their honour. That's good on them.
Good for
it's
you.
just me.
Standing by your principles.
Can I say something there? And not to discuss that at all, because that's for another discussion, I think. But when you asked about role models, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking the only one that I can think of that immediately hits me, because if you look at what role model means in the connotation that I think you're meaning it, I thought of Ricky Beadle-Blair, and he got, you know, he got an order. But I thought of him, and I thought of him because of what he's doing and a lot of the stuff that he's done in schools, and you know, all sorts of stuff.
I can agree with you on that, definitely.
But also, I just want to add that I think that there are lots of role models, but they're not necessarily in the media.
Yes.
They're not in the public eye.
Yeah.
But all those people, you might have a midwife who's really done great work with her students and inspired them. You can have a teacher who's done something special, or somebody who works therapeutically. You know, all sorts of people. But you only see the ones that are in the media. And in terms of black, LGBT, BAME, whatever, you know, there's not that many.
But can I, Suki, I think role models, it's important to, especially for the next generation, to feel like they have somebody to aspire or be inspired by.
Absolutely.
So there are a wealth of people, you're absolutely right, and everyone here on this panel is a role model within themselves. So you've got Linda Bellos, you've got Femi Otoju, you've got Monroe Berghoff, you've got Campbell X, you've got Shardine Taylor-Stone, Jackie Kay, so many people. Bissy Alimi, so many people that don't get a mention, and I think that that's down to your very first question that you asked about, you know, that platform. Well, it's important that we create that platform, and I think what we've done with UK Black Pride is to ensure, and we use the word black, because the BAME will just be like a bit of a shower. People of colour. We use that platform to really highlight the successes in our community, because we already know we're fragmented, there's a lot of issues. There are some amazing, talented people in the community who will not necessarily reach a particular place, maybe because they don't have that privilege or it's not open to them, but we make sure that platform is for them, and UK Black Pride is for the community and it's run by the community, so
I think
that's what helps.
You've all raised some really interesting points. I mean, the point about visibility and role models is really important, and I do think the media is starting to catch up, particularly when you've got programs like Empire, for instance, in the US, where it's pretty much an all-black cast. They had their first LGBT black character, which was pretty groundbreaking. So it feels like the tide is starting to turn. But what do you think are the issues around representation on mainstream media of BAME and LGBT people?
Well, they're virtually non-existent right now. If I look at this in a British context, they're virtually non-existent. I mean, I was raking my brain. I mean, Gokwan maybe. You know Gokwan. And I just cannot think of anyone that I would.
Study, wasn't there?
Yes, gay Muslim storyline.
It's very different in America. I just spent 5 weeks in America, and I was saying that you can go a whole week in England and not see a person of color on television. You cannot go 5 seconds in America and not see a person of color, whether they're Asian, black, or even Chinese or Japanese or Mexican.
So one thing I wanted to mention, because Phil, you mentioned the R word earlier, racism, which I feel like when talking about any kind of discrimination, racism is the one thing that makes people more uncomfortable, I think, than even homophobia. So do you think racism exists in the LGBT community?
Oh my God,
And how does this also vary when you're looking at
Have we got an extra hour?
when you're looking at the different ethnic minority groups we talked about, Indian, Chinese, all the different kinds of black. So I'd really love to get some opinions on that.
Okay, so Kimberly touched on this a little bit earlier. So if I wanted to go to, shall we say, any bar or any club, like in and around Soho, and I say, oh, I want to book a Friday night, I want to put on a Bollywood and Bhangra night, literally doors will be shut in your face, your emails won't get returned. So, yes, we have to create spaces away from the LGBT scene, because predominantly the LGBT scene is racist, and it doesn't get BAME issues.
They don't. And you know what I've noticed as well with the Caucasian community and the LGBTQ scene?
And Caucasian, for the viewers at home, means white people, just in case people don't know what Caucasian means.
A lot of them feel very uncomfortable talking about racism. I think a lot of them feel that they're afraid to admit that there's a part of them that is racist. And I don't think no one likes to admit that they have a racist, they are racist. I mean, you know, I do a lot of posting on Facebook, and if I ever post something about, you know, there's a young black kid just murdered last week. I had like 14 likes. Then I posted something before, it was me putting on makeup or whatever, 400 likes, you know. So people were very, very nervous about it.
I mean, I suppose that leads me on to the question around unconscious bias, because everyone is unconsciously biased, whether you like it or not. And that could be racism, homophobia, sexism. How do we actually overcome these challenges that the BAME and LGBT community are facing?
You have got, you know what, the thing that we need to get out there is we have to let the Caucasian community know that life does not revolve all around them. There are other people in this universe that's just as important as them. It's about all of us getting together. We may not like each other, but we need to have a little bit more respect for each other and take time to actually get to know someone, and don't judge anyone on their hair color, their skin color, or whatever. It's, you know, I feel that our scene is so superficial, and it's just, it makes me feel sad, because it wasn't like this back in the 70s. Not that I was around, but you know, people were, you know, they were more together. You know, they were more together back in the day. You know, there was more love. There's not that much love. You have the Bear Club, you have the Femme Club, the Trans Club, this club over here and that club over there. It's you know, no one's together anymore.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Because for me, well, first of all, I think because I'm a woman of a certain age, I can't really speak for the clubbing scene, you see. So I think there are the issues that you've mentioned in the clubbing scene. But for me, I think it's about an acceptance of difference, and it's about connectivity, and it's about understanding that we have so many things in common, and people accepting that we're all different. And I think the more that we have those open discussions, I think the better it's going to be, because, you know, I know some amazing white people that really get it, just on the ball, that would campaign on behalf of any disadvantaged group and would be very supportive. And I'm just thinking, well, if we had many more people like that, the world would be a very different place, you know.
So leading on from that, how can we educate the LGBT community to be more inclusive, especially white gay men who are largely dominating LGBT, if you think of the four, particularly when it comes to maybe them using their white privilege to be more active allies for the BAME community? But first of all, Phil, could you just define white privilege for the viewers at home?
Yeah, but I also do think we need to come back to this conversation of racism, because this is what happens all too often. We quite easily skirt over racism and then talk about inclusivity, and inclusivity is quite very, very different to the issues around systemic racism which exist in our communities. But in terms of privilege, I think that, you know, even I, as a black out lesbian woman who is of working class background, I have a privilege over some of my own comrades, colleagues who are maybe asylum seekers, who don't have the same access that I have been fortunate to have. So trying to explain white privilege to some of our brothers and sisters, be it white or black, it's about understanding that white people have always and will always have a different privilege over black people because of their access route to what they have. So yes, they can be born into poverty, but I guarantee you, two people who are black and white who are both born into poverty and they apply for a job, there will be a difference, because racism does exist in our society.
Yeah,
but I think that it's much more complex than that. It's about understanding that privilege is about, you know, the access, the support you can get, the routes, the navigation of your life that you can take, you know, that route may be a lot easier, and you notice I use the word maybe, a lot easier for a white person going through the labour market, going through employment, going through schools, colleges, and then when you get out at the other end, it means that maybe they have a bigger access pool to particular things. But I just don't want to seem like I'm just generalising all white people. But there is a privilege there that stems right back to some of the issues around racism.
I mean, if we go back to racism itself, I mean, Asifa and I, we're both on this Gaysian WhatsApp group.
Yes.
And we have some of the guys who are single Gaysians, and they actually take screen grabs from Grindr, from guys that they've been talking to. I mean, some of these comments are incredidly vile and very racist. So I mean, I was so shocked seeing them. Screenshots of their phone. It's what the kids do. So you can see what someone's done. Well, you can see the comment on their thing, and they're really terrible. I mean, you can probably talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to give examples of racism that people may not be aware of. I mean, we all are experiencing this. I mean, yes, as queer people of colour, we are, eroticized, exoticized. And also, you know, you get this on social media, you get this on Grindr, you get this on dating apps. But I guarantee you, and these examples that I'm going to give you, a hijabi lesbian will go into a lesbian bar or a gay bar, probably be served last, probably be vilified for wearing the hijab. Some of the guys that come to my club will get turned away from heaven for looking too masculine, not effeminate enough, not gay enough, or having too much hair or looking too much like a terrorist. And then, you know, there are people that will get served last at the bar simply because of the colour of their skin. So you have both subtle examples and overtly racist examples in the community.
And you have an example which has taken place only a couple of months ago, where someone very prominent in our community was clearly racist about a core group of people that may wish to go to their club, and said that, you know, Somalians are, are thieves and so forth. Now, when you have that, and that person holds all that privilege and power because they have made it in that in the community and own something, what does that say to the rest of the community that actually wants a safe space to go and celebrate who they are, enjoy, let their hair down, have a glass of wine or a Diet Coke? That is why I most people don't like talking to me. I walk into a room and they're like, oh my gosh, she's here again. She's going to be talking about racism, equality, this, that, and inclusion, intersectionality. Now, I'm not frightened. I really am not frightened because I have nothing to lose. And I think that, you know, one thing that Pride can do is to talk about racism and put it at the root cause. As far as I'm concerned, you cannot challenge feminism if you don't recognise as a man that you can be sexist. You cannot you can't call yourself an anti-racist if you don't recognise as a white comrade or a brother that actually you can be racist. So I just think that let's talk about it, let's not shy away from it, and let's make sure that it is on the agenda. Because you as an Asian brother who happens to be out will go to a club and you will incur racism, and somebody might target you and say, right, Islamophobia and so forth. So there's different things that need to be addressed, and our wider community need to hear about it. So let's usualise and normalise the conversation.
But it's interesting you mentioned how people talk about, or might roll your eyes if you come in the room, oh, here she is, she's going to talk about racism again. But actually, we don't talk about racism that often.
No.
So how can they be fatigued by it already? That's
well, maybe we talk about it amongst ourselves, because I know that with different people we'll talk about it amongst ourselves, but maybe it's getting it out into the wider community. And I'm thinking, you know, all this social media, which I'm not really au fait with, but obviously it's taking over, but surely these are platforms to use to start the discussion, to continue the discussion. I mean, in the late 70s, early 80s, and I'm showing my age now, but we used to have those discussions back in the day, and things moved. I thought they moved, but just hearing you, because I'm hearing things that are shocking me now because I thought we'd moved on from there. So I'm really
I mean,
surprised.
things like Black Lives Matter, like, you know, the issue around being queer and LGBT and a person of colour has come alive. I mean, the fact, come on, let's be honest, the fact that we're having this discussion is because a voice is being raised, is because Pride in London have given us this platform, because we've been shouting on about it in social media.
Talking of
We're relevant.
Talking of social media, we've got some great comments online. Emma has said she loves Olivette and totally agree that role models are in our everyday lives, not just those that everyone would know in the media. We've got a really good question here from Faith, who asks, bigotry and ignorance exist in all communities, so why is this any different? Who wants to take a chance at that?
Well, I think it's you know, the black communities are suffering. I mean, there's bigotry and ignorance in the white community, but they're not suffering as much as the black community. I mean, you know, look at what's happening in America, you know, with the police killing these black youths. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, the black community they're not given chances. They need to, you know, they're judged by their skin. You can have bigotry and ignorance in the white community, but still, you know, they're not going to go someplace and look for a job and be judged on their skin color.
Yeah.
So that was a stupid question, to be honest with you.
Well, let me change tack slightly. I want to ask, what do you think could be done to reduce the sense that you can either be seen as a BAME role model or an LGBT role model, but rarely both at the same time? How can we reconcile the two? Olivette?
Well, I mean, I just thought even, you know, us coming here today, so we're all BAME today, you know, and I know that often when they have discussions, it's all white, and then they might call on somebody. So I suppose what I'm saying is we need to be right across the board. I don't think we should be sectioned off in that particular way. So I think there needs to be more inclusivity right across the board.
Does anyone else have anything to add on that question?
Yeah, I think this is where I always use the word intersectionality. You know, and the word intersectionality was coined by a woman called Kimberly Crenshaw, an American scholar, amazing woman, and really it has arrived from looking at the different identities of who we are as people and how our lives intersect with each other. So, you know, you can often be left in a very soul-destroying place if you have to pick one over another. So as a black woman who is an out lesbian, who may be a disabled person, those different identities of my life may intersect. So it makes it hard to separate that out, because it means that you're only going to talk about the issues around homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, but yet still you're having to leave your race at the door. Or you talk about your race and then you have to leave your sexual orientation or sexual identity, gender identity at the door. And those things are not helpful. So when we're having the conversation, we should be free to feel very authentic about talking about all of us, all of ourselves. And that point you made about, you know, talking about just everything, why shouldn't we?
I think people also need to own their race as well. So if I think about the work we do in Outstanding and Empower, which is about bringing role models and making them visible for the different communities, when sometimes we're trying to get them nominated for the Financial Times role model list we do, there might be some ethnic minority leaders that are very much like, oh no, I don't want to play the race card. And I'm very much like, you do know you're black.
Yes.
Because you can't exactly hide it. It's not like LGBT where you have to come out to say who you are. So it's really interesting that sometimes I think people really struggle to be both at the same time.
Do you think they struggle, or do you think that society, society, separates? So we're having this wonderful conversation, and I love the fact that Pride in London have put on this event, and wow, I'm surrounded like black magic. You know, this is melanin popping in the finest. You know, however, what is going to, for me, it's always about outcomes. How do we measure our outcomes? We have got this gathering of, you know, melanin popping black magic people, but what do we do afterwards? Does it sit here and, you know, we have the wonderful comments from the viewers, or are we going to take this to the next step? Pride in London.
We have to.
Yes, I know, but we're already doing that in certain regards. You know, none of us are backwards in coming forwards about the issues that we face in our own communities. And I say communities because we're not a monolithic, you know, sort of.
Yes.
But what do we do next in terms of making sure some of those allies who may not necessarily understand racism in the communities because of their privilege and they don't see it, why would you see that somebody's disadvantaged when you don't face that disadvantage?
Let us come back to that because we've got lots of activity online.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
No, it's really, really good. There's a guy called Matt says, as a white gay guy with many BAME friends and colleagues, I have found an occasion that some BAME people immediately assume I am a white racist man. Do you agree racism can work both ways?
Yes, I do agree that racism can work both ways, but why do people think that of him? What energy is he putting out there into the universe for people to think that he may be a racist? So he needs to ask himself that question about himself.
But do you think BAME people can be racist about white people in the LGBT community?
Yeah, I think some of them can. I do. I think the black community has suffered from since slavery. You know, I think, you know, there's a lot of angry black people out there.
But I think there is a difference between being racist and being prejudiced or wanting your own space. And I think, you know, we don't have the same sort of power. That's the first thing, I think. You know, it's more like, you know, in the old days they used to say prejudice and power, and that's what racism is. We don't have that, and I say we collectively. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I wonder what's going on for this guy that he thinks that people think is racist. Because I don't walk around and suddenly think, oh, that person's racist. If somebody does something to me or I hear a conversation, then I have to make those assumptions. But otherwise, I'm not walking around thinking every white person's a racist.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's rephrase the question. So we talked about racism in the LGBT community. What about homophobia in the BAME community?
What about it? What about it?
And can we add transphobia into that as well?
Of course, transphobia, biphobia, all related to LGBT.
Yes, you know, the most transphobia I ever experienced, and I'm sure see if you could agree with this, is come from white gay men.
Okay.
Yes,
I can go into a heterosexual bar and never have any problems, but if I go into a gay bar, I'm getting looked down at. Just pushed past, looking at like I'm less of a person.
There's this perception, and I think it's an unhelpful perception that the black community, the BAME community, the people of colour community are more homophobic, biphobic and transphobic than any other community. Now, I want to just put this on record that they are not. I think what our community has are different sets of challenges which are about, and I go back to why I didn't accept the empire, because some imperialists went in there, left the Bible, left the sodomy laws, and we have it, and we have 400 years to go back to try and reverse some of these sodomy laws and the mindsets that has been left. So I think that our communities have some serious challenges about acceptance, have some serious challenges about weighing up, the Bible says this, but this is what my daughter is. You know, so I think that the issues are there, but we're no more homophobic than, you know, my friend Tommy down the road whose parents practice Catholicism.
Can I just add to that? I used to say, and I'm not sure if it's still true, I used to say that the BAME community are much more vocal about things than the white community. So whereas they might say, you know, I don't agree with that, you know, a white person might be thinking it but not saying it so much. And, you know, people have experienced that in different ways over time. So maybe that's part of it as well.
And can I just say, from a South Asian context, if I were to talk about transphobia, for example, actually being trans was absolutely fine before the colonial era in the South Asian countries. And actually, as of now, it's legal to be trans in the South Asian countries. If I were to come out, by the way, Pride in London, I am giving you an exclusive. I am on hormones and I am coming out as trans.
Congratulations.
Thank you. As a trans woman, I am absolutely adamant that if I were to come out to another South Asian, to another black person, or a person of colour, they would actually get it quicker and more than a person in the West.
So going back to Phil about how, after this, how do we take actions away from today?
Mhm.
So how can we build bridges with the LGBT and the BAME community?
I think, first of all, recognise that the bridge is there, as in a bridge needs to be created, that there is a gap there. And actually have discussions with both sides, not just include us on a BAME panel, actually have allies on board as well.
You know, more education, more discussions like this, but, you know, saying all that, you know, the Caucasian community and the people of color community have got to make up their mind if they're going to actually come together and get to really know each other.
I think it has to be multifaceted. I think we have to use social media for that. I think we should have more discussions. I think even in clubs, people should start challenging these things, because what you've said to me, I mean, you know, in terms of what was on Grindr or Tinder or whatever it is, sorry. But do you know what I mean? And going to clubs and you not being able to hold an event there. I mean, really, I find that quite shocking in this day and age.
So what needs to happen? There's lots of things. So a young lady called Kaiser Rose, who's part of UK Black Pride, she's putting on an event for UK Black Pride that talks about queer people of colour in the community and their access on the scene, and why is there such racism.
Do you know when that is?
Yes, we do. That is on
Sunday.
Sunday. That's Sunday at the Rich Mix.
Great.
And you can get Kaiser on k@ukblackpride.org.uk. However, and it's on the Pride in London website. So one of the things that is positive about what Pride in London and UK Black Pride do, we work together. And we work together and we've had many conversations, whether there have been frustrating ones or ones which are positive, to talk about, actually, we can't just say homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. We're talking about, let's look at the racism in our communities, but let's look at how we as UK Black Pride celebrate our successes, but also challenge racism at the same time, coupled with all the other things. So, you know, Pride in London on the 8th of July will take place. UK Black Pride on the 9th of July, working together with each other to look at making sure our communities' bridges are built. Because at the moment, there's so much fragmentation. I think, you know, although I look 21, I'm a lot older than that, but I remember the days of, you know, we're talking about the liberation struggles and, you know, those liberations that had been fought. Many people like Linda Bellos and Femi Otoji had been, you know, yes absolutely, Monica Beadle-Blair had been there and had created this platform for us, because I couldn't have done UK Black Pride without those people. So, sorry, I know you want to go on, I know you're going to kick me in a minute. So, what can we do is we can each support each other in what we're doing and not stay neutral. There's this wonderful quote by Dr. Desmond Bishop Tutu, and it says, if you are neutral in the situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. So why, as LGBT people who we face marginalisation, discrimination to a greater or lesser degree, why are we not understanding that racism is wrong, as well as homophobia, biphobia, transphobia? We cannot afford to stay silent. So much is happening, from Trump being elected to, you know, Brexit, and people feeling emboldened to be absolutely horrifically racist, sexist. We now have to stand up to the plate and say, okay, our communities need to come together. So I'm going to stop now, because I know you're giving me that wonderful little side eye, and I'm going on. So,
there's a big shift to the right politically, globally.
Absolutely.
And so, if anything, we need inclusion now more than ever. So I completely agree with you. I am very conscious of time, so I know we're going to have to wrap up very shortly. It'd be really great if one of you, in a few sentences, could answer the following question, because it'd be great to give some advice to the viewers who are watching. What advice would you give to the BAME and LGBT community that are watching now, so that they can actually flourish in our community? So specifically, perhaps to the BAME viewers.
Well, I would say, first of all, be strong in yourself, be confident in yourself. Don't let anyone put you down. Don't feel ashamed of who you are. That's the most important thing. And then I would say, get allies, get people that you feel confident to talk to. When there are issues that you're not sure about, get them. And we haven't mentioned religion. I feel very strongly about there's so many BAME people that have strong religions, and I think hold on to your religion. Don't be put off by the negativity, because as much negativity as is there, you've also got the positives.
Great. Well, actually, from a religion perspective, there will be an episode covering religion in a few weeks, so watch the space.
You know what I said earlier, about believing in yourself. Never let anyone tell you that you can't do anything. And I just want to say as well, a thing that, why in America, we have so many. Unfortunately, we do have a lot more successful Black people, but in America, what they did was if they took this, they said, well, if you're not going to let us in your nightclub, then we're going to start our own nightclub. So if you're not going to let us do this, well, let's come together and do it ourselves. Just always believe that you can do whatever you want to do. You have to put that in the universe and really believe it and respect your race and never be embarrassed of who you are.
Yeah, brilliant. Asifa?
I was just thinking back to my own experiences, especially when I started my own career and there not really being an opportunity or platform. So what I would say is, look, be as creative as you want. Use social media to your advantage. And if an opportunity or platform isn't there, create one for yourself, honey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like literally use what you have and create it for yourself and get your voice heard. And never give in and never give up on who you are. Because I think if you do end up doing that, then, I was just thinking back to the dark times that I was having, and it's just like, what is the alternative?
Yeah.
Either get your voice raised and dig in deep for that inner strength, or not. And I think I know what my path would be, and I'd really encourage others to do the same.
There's that great quote, if opportunity doesn't knock, create your own door.
Amen.
Which I thoroughly
Amen. Yes,
agree
amen.
with. Phil, so what would your advice be to the BAME LGBT viewers?
I think that it's more about to my younger me. If I know what I know now, what would I do? I just want to say that you're not alone. There are so many support groups, activities, organisations, and I think that I just want the youth, the next generation, because we're all not going to be here forever, to know that they are not alone. And I'd like them to come forward and step up and take over UK Black Pride and make sure they claim that space and claim it as their own. But the other thing that I would say is that, let's not be afraid to talk about things. Let's put our head above the parapet. Let's make sure that we amplify our voices collectively and also individually about who we are. And being positive is so important because there's so much going on in the world. There's supporting one another, being positive.
Can I say as well, in the community, BAME community or people of color community, we're not all going to like each other, but it's so important for us to respect each other.
Yeah.
And come to UK Black Pride. I'm sorry, come to UK Black Pride on the 9th of July, where there's lots of things happening. Get involved. Pride in London. We're going to be working together. Absolutely.
Also come to Pride as well.
Absolutely.
Come to
Pride in London. Pride. All
I would love for us to talk all evening. It's been wonderful, ladies. I just want to say one more comment, which I thought was really good online, which we've had from James, who has said, I've definitely been guilty of white privilege ignorance. My eyes have really been open to how horrendous, vicious and racist our community can be. It breaks my heart and we must do more. Great panel and great people. So we're already changing hearts and minds.
Thank you, James.
Thank
you, which cameras we look at. Thank you, James, for that. That was beautiful. We all appreciate that. Definitely. Hope to meet you one day, James, for a drink.
So I think it just leads me to thank our guests that have joined us tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it'll be, if you can all tune in again next week at the same time, the subject's going to be around mental health and body image. So please do follow Pride in London on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And we'll all see you at the Pride celebrations on the 8th of July. Thanks.
Absolutely.
And
And,
the
and 9th.
And the 9th of July. Black Pride. Yes. Thanks.
Thank you.